Hey, everybody, this is David Hood and Grayson Mann with the Orange Crush Podcast, a special Friday edition. Clemson plays Louisville tomorrow, night game in Death Valley. Can't wait. I have some bubble wrap here. Why do I have bubble wrap that's popping? Because Louisville head coach Jeff Brom said that he expects Death Valley to be popping tomorrow night. Grayson, we have 5 keys to victory, and popping brings up one of those keys to victory over Louisville. First of all, are you excited to be back in the Valley? Are you excited for a night game?
I am. I think the last one we got was Stanford, and sort of we put an asterisk by it because of the situation that the community was facing. But I got to shout out your intro here with the bubble wrap, because that was a creative. I didn't know you were going with it, but I trusted you. I trusted your instincts, and I'm very pleased with what was given out in the first minute. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm always excited to cover a game, especially at night. Feels like the crowd's going to be a little amped up, a little juiced for a November slate that's going to be a gauntlet for this team. And I think the home crowd's going to be a very big factor tomorrow, and I'm sure we'll talk about it.
Well, so let's go back to the last home game. It was Virginia. It was the 43rd consecutive noon game, or at least that's what it feels like for the Tigers. It was a weird contest because we kind of had that CJ Spiller ceremony pregame. Tigers ran down the hill. Tony Elliott's out at midfield, doffing his cap. And it felt like, okay, this feels okay. But you never really felt like Virginia was in the game. The crowd never really got into it. And people came away going, that might have been one of the most lackluster atmospheres we've had in years in Death Valley. Definitely not a sellout. Now, though, and it was hot too. Another one of those kind of warm days. But now we've got Louisville coming to town, better opponent than probably what Virginia was. Night game. And we're beginning that championship phase. November rain, if you want to call it that. November to remember. Dabo calls it the championship phase, where it is all on the table. Clemson really needs to go 5-0 this month.
Yeah, the playoff push is here. We're going to find out in a couple days where the committee is going to slot Clemson. And I think it's going to be interesting with how they judge who would be in first place in the ACC if Clemson and Miami to both hold on in that sense. But I think we've said it all year that you don't really want to put your destiny in the committee's hands. So just winning the ACC and getting that bye is the best way to go, and certainly the route that Clemson's going to want to take. But it starts tomorrow night with a team in Louisville that we're going to talk about today and probably more in depth with our coverage of TigerNet that you should definitely check out. But it's a team that's explosive, but also a team with some flaws that I think Clemson can expose. David, let's get into that first key. Which one do you want to tackle first? I'll give you the keys to this one.
Well, let's start with that home crowd. Everybody's excited about the night game. Maybe it'll be a little bit cooler. Definitely be all dark when the Tigers come running down the hill. That's always exciting. But I go back to when Louisville had some of those really good teams, the Lamar Jackson teams. And, I can't remember how many plays it was, but they had a right guard who jumped off sides like 3 out of 5 plays early in the game because he just simply couldn't hear. And Clemson's crowd, let's face it, Clemson is 8-0 against Louisville. They're 4-0 against Louisville and Death Valley. But that crowd has always played a big part. And I think that tomorrow night, if you look at Louisville, some of the things we're kind of hearing, this is going to be their Super Bowl. They're kind of out of the running for an ACC championship. Now their momentum is, let's go wreck Clemson season. Let's go see if we can knock the Tigers out. That would be a great first victory in the series. So Clemson, I think the crowd really needs to be a part of it. Jeff Brom said he thinks that the crowd's going to be popping. Let's pop it. I think the crowd will play a big part.
Yeah, I remember that game as well. The amount of false starts. You had that penalty counter, and it just kept ticking upwards. And so I think for Louisville's offense, they're very much a team that's scripted on rhythm. And if you get in there in that crowd and you have some false starts, maybe it's 2nd and 15, turns into a 3rd and 20, and then it just continues. It's like a rock going down a hill. It just keeps rolling. And just eventually you're going to get crushed. And so for this Louisville offense, being in a 3rd and 6 is much more preferable to a 3rd and 11, and having that crowd, you having to sort of rely on a silent count. So I think disrupting that rhythm would be key early to sort of rattle the feathers a little bit. No pun intended with a Berg mascot coming to town. But yeah, I think the home crowd for sure, David, is going to play a factor. I think it might be our loudest crowd this year besides the, I think, sigh of relief we got from the Wesco touchdown against Appalachian State. So it's going to be fun. It's always fun to cover a night game in Death Valley, one of the best atmospheres in the ACC and college football. So can't wait, man. Can't wait. Let's shift to another key though, Mr. Hood. Something that really stuck out to me when watching this team, this Cardinals defense specifically, is something Swinney said on Tuesday about this being a really aggressive Louisville defense, something that really challenges you, isn't afraid to bring the house, drop their corners back, maybe some zero blitzes. And so I'm watching this Louisville team, David. I'm watching SMU. I'm watching Miami, watching Notre Dame. What do all those quarterbacks have in common is that they make plays with their legs. And I think for this Clemson offense, I wouldn't be shocked early if not only we see design runs from Cade Klubnik, but we saw it against Virginia where he's dead to rights and he rolls out, makes a play to Cole Turner. I think the second key for this is Klubnik's legs. I'd love to get your thoughts on it.
I think that Cade, Dabo talked about it this week, that Cade's legs have made a big difference this season. You know, you think about that run that he had early against, was it NC State, I guess, where he kind of, takes it up the gut there for the touchdown. So Cade has definitely been a part. And look, if you're running a read option offense, your quarterback, if you're not, thinking that he's a threat, well, then the read option offense doesn't really work, does it? So it has been a huge part. Louisville, that rush defense can be good, can be bad at times. Teams have been able to run the football on them. I don't think they're the biggest group in the world. It kind of reminds me, let me go off topic here for just a second. And I've said this before, but I remember, I guess it was 2018. We went up to Louisville and I went down to the field and was watching Clemson warm up and was headed back up on the press elevator. And one of Louisville's employees, I don't know what they worked with the program. He goes, well, I walked down on the field with the thought that Louisville had a really good shot to win this game. He said, and then I saw Clemson warming up with Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne and Dexter Lawrence and Christian Wilkins and Cleveland Farrell. And he goes, we don't look like that at all. And I will always remember that. And I said, so what are you saying? And he said, I'm saying this is going to be a blowout for my Cardinals. This series has been so much fun. But yeah, Cade Klubnik getting loose, trusting himself. And then, that's part of his maturity too, is that he's actually been really good under pressure this year. He's actually been really good when teams have blitzed. And if they decide to bring the house on him, by the way, I expect Bryant Wesco, the wide receiver, to play.
Okay.
I've heard that he has looked good at practice. That, if they hold him, it would just be one of those. Maybe he doesn't feel good in pregame or feel good today, but I think he's going to play. That's just me. And that gives Cade Klubnik another deep threat. Love that key from you, Grayson. Yes, if Cade Klubnik winds up with, 65, 70 yards? Good day for
Clemson. We need a term for your news breaking if that ends up becoming true on Saturday. I need like they call it a Woj bomb. We need something for you. Like, I'll come up with something crafty down the road. I'm not going to try to stall this podcast out with something that's terribly unoriginal. So we'll try to I'll bookmark that. And if you got a comment down below for a fun name for David Hood's news breaking, please, I want to see it because I would love to put it out there. But yeah, David, let's see. Key 3. What do you got for me? I'm ready.
Let's talk about the turnover margin. Clemson is really good in the turnover margin this year. In fact, that probably is people don't like to talk about it. They don't like to talk about last year. They want to point, fingers at the coaches, point fingers at Dabo. It's all about coaching. Sure, it's all of that. But Clemson really just they turned it over too much last year. They just did. And this year, the Tigers have lost 4. The margin is +9 so far this year. They have, gained 4 fumbles. They've got the interceptions. I think they've got 9 interceptions. So, this is a team that's really good with the turnover margin. Louisville is kind of like, they can force some turnovers, but they only have 2 interceptions on the year. They forced 6 fumbles, but they've also lost 5 fumbles, and they've thrown 9 picks. So they have a -2 turnover margin this year. And let's face it, Cade Klubnik has been really good because he has 3 interceptions, Grayson.
Yeah, and I remember last year when doing some of those game previews, and you'd look at the turnover margin and be like, well, Clemson's, when they've won, they've only turned it over like 1.5 times. And that was like a good thing. Like, oh, they're not coughing up the ball like someone's got a cold or something. It was ridiculous, the amount of numbers that they were throwing out last year. But yeah, they've been more secure with the ball. And watching some of Louisville's games again this week, part of the reason they're 5-3 is because they've turned over the football. I think they fumbled 3 times on the road against Notre Dame and had a costly interception against SMU. I think this is a team that could easily be 7-1, but it's sort of that same talking points from last year's, oh, this is a really good team. But so you have those sort of big flaws that really hold you back from greatness. And it's sort of what Dabo said all year. And a large part of 2023 is that we've been a good team, but we've done things that have held us back from being a great team. And so I think Clemson keeping that turnover margin and continuing to win that battle, that makes them a great team. Or maybe Louisville, yeah, they're much better than what teams have faced in the last couple months, but they're just a good team. And so it's sort of those mistakes have been holding them back this calendar year. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think Clemson probably will end up winning that turnover battle. I wouldn't be shocked if there's like we talked about with the home crowd, it's 3rd and 16. Tyler Shuck is, in all of his experience, still trying to make a play, and you have an interception, and you get that crowd going. You get a short field, and you try not to make this a shootout against a really good Cardinals offense. So turnover, certainly important in every game, but I think entering November, certainly going to be heightened as we continue down this stretch.
You know, I'm glad that you brought up Tyler Shuck, the quarterback for Louisville, and you talk about, yes, for all of for all of his experience. Yeah, this is a guy that is out of Arizona, but this is his 7th year, and he's been a little bit he's been everywhere really as a player. He has been where
like
all
Purdue,
like Texas
Oregon,
Tech, you do Oregon, yeah, whatever. He's about to go on Social Security. I was trying to look it up really fast. Dude is 62 years old. He's on AARP, but that's where you're right. Key number 1 comes into play, the Clemson crowd. I think that the Notre Dame crowd, which really isn't the same as the Clemson crowd when they're rabid, got to them a little bit there late in that game. And, that was just a day game. So I think that that's where key number 1 kind of plays into it. Even though he's an older, experienced guy, maybe they can rattle him a little bit.
Nothing can prepare you for a loud decibel count. And it's Halloween. I know it's November when we're posting this, but it's still Halloween weekend if you're a Clemson student. And so the spooky, scary costumes will be out. Maybe there'll be a ghost in the crowd. And to quote Sam Darnold, I'm seeing ghosts. Maybe we'll see some ghosts on Saturday night. Who knows? When the night comes out, maybe some spooky monsters, and we'll get Michael Jackson to play some Thriller or something. I don't know, David. I'm in the Halloween spirit this morning.
We took the boys over to Patrick Square last night. One of Nikki's coworkers had a kind of a get together, and so the boys were trick or treating, and there was a kid in there who was dressed like an Ohio State football player, and a kid who was dressed like a Clemson football player. They kind of just eyed each other as they passed each other on the sidewalk. And somebody on the porch beside me said, "I wonder if that kid knows where he's at."
I don't know if he does.
He had the Kyle McCord thing going on.
Hey, there you go. Well, wait, Kyle McCord is a Syracuse now, so maybe that kid.
Oh yeah, that's right. I'm sorry, the Will Howard thing. Yeah.
Yes, Will Howard. What a player. Let's move to another important factor for tomorrow night. I think Louisville's got a lot of talent on this offense, David, and something that really sticks out of that freshman Isaac Brown in the backfield, but also Ja'Cory Brooks, really talented wideout for Louisville. Clemson's really faced a lot of true number 1 receivers this year in the ACC, whether it was Malachi Fields, Eric Ayumanor. Now it's another one in Ja'Cory Brooks. Clemson's Avion Terrell is going to have a challenge, but I think what's going to be the real key for this defense is, and something Sweeney's pointed out, they're not afraid to say it, setting the edge and sort of getting that perimeter established has been a challenge at times. And I think for a Louisville team, that's got to be your go-to when you try to, we've seen it, I think, 4 or 5 times this year, teams on offense, their first scripted set is all attacking that edge, trying to see if Clemson can dominate on that side. And it's been a mixed result so far. What do you expect from this defense tomorrow?
Yeah, it's hard to say. They've been good. Like if you look at it and Brandon Rink from our website is all about, sometimes the numbers don't tell the story because the starting unit has been really good this year. It's when Clemson gets a lead and some of the reserves come in that the numbers get skewed a little bit. But you take a look at this Louisville offense, and Clemson has two running backs with over 100 yards. Jay Haynes has 130, and of course we know Phil Maffa. The other rusher with over 100 yards is Cade Klubnik with 227. Louisville has 4 running backs with over 100 yards, and a fifth one is sitting at 87 yards. Freshman Isaac Brown, they got another freshman Duke Watson, another freshman Kewan Brown. Then you've got the junior Donald Chaney. Feels like he's been around for forever. These guys all are 150 plus, and Clemson has not been good at setting that edge. We've seen Kay Denhoff get upfield too fast. We've seen some of these other young guys. You get them in a 2nd and 13, 2nd and 14, and they think, oh my gosh, it's going to be a pass. They go up the field and somebody runs right by them. And it's happened more often than not. And that's been a problem for the Tigers. And I think that's going to be a key for Louisville. Can they kind of play that slow game? And when I say slow, I mean drop back like it's a pass, then give it to a draw, a screenplay, let these guys get upfield. Isaac Brown has wheels. He can take it to the house, and then they're really good at wide receiver. I think that this is going to be the biggest test, and I actually asked Dabo Swinney this, since Georgia for them offensively. And, Louisville's going to score. They're going to score points. It's going to be up to Clemson to kind of outscore them at times. But, we always talk about running the football. Clemson's going to be able to run it, I think. Can Clemson stop that Louisville running game?
It's going to be that interesting matchup of, you can score, but can you stop the others from matching that on the scoreboard? Right. And I think for Clemson, as really proficient as they've been on offense all year, we haven't necessarily seen them in a shootout scenario yet where you're reliant on, hey, our defense isn't really having it tonight. You have to go out there and consistently put together drives. And for the most part, they have, but it hasn't really been when that urgency's kicked up, if you know what I mean. Sort of, you can put up points on 6 straight drives against Wake Forest when Wake Forest is punting every 5 minutes, but can you do it when Louisville's consistently punching it in and it's 14-14, 28-21, and you have to really convert on key situations? So it's going to be another test for this offense, despite the fact that we're talking about the other side of the ball. I think scoring under those pressure situations, I think Clemson fans might want to see that on Saturday, sort of how this team responds to different scenarios as we enter November. We haven't seen everything from this team, I feel. There's been a lot, I think, maybe pressed back because of the blowouts against inferior competition and sort of how things play out against Georgia. Maybe we see some new plays on Saturday. We've seen Antonio Williams toss the rock. We've seen some really funky stuff from Garrett Riley, which is always fun. I think he's a mastermind when it comes to that small little playbook. Maybe he's got really tiny handwriting and he's got like a will throw in like the left corner. And you're like, okay, I'm going to circle that one today. So maybe we'll see something funky. Maybe we'll see like a Philly special type thing on Saturday. You can see the Boston hat if you're watching on YouTube. That play, I hate it, but I love it. I respect it at the same time.
Yeah, but Chad Morris ran it at Clemson first. Just to be fair.
I'm giving it credit where credit's due. I think that's where Philadelphia actually got it from, is Clemson.
And then let's talk about a fifth key, and this is Louisville's defense. And they're ranked 62nd nationally. Clemson is 52nd nationally. Probably the difference is that Louisville has been involved in a lot of close games. They had Austin Peay and Jacksonville State. Those were blowouts early in the year. They went in and outscored those guys 111-14. Gave up 106 to Austin Peay, 290 or so to Jacksonville State. Their lowest yardage since then was the 280 that they gave up to Notre Dame, but Notre Dame kind of controlled that game, controlled the clock. 117 rush yards, 163 through the air. But SMU put up 481. Virginia, not the world's greatest offense, but put up 449. Miami put up 538 on kind of a raw night on the Heights last week, only 318. But again, Boston College kind of runs that slow offense, controlled a lot of the pace. I think Clemson probably can be in that 460, 480 range, and if not more.
Yeah, there's certainly an opportunity for big plays on Saturday night. And that's how you get, we sort of talk about how each key sort of represents and meshes with another. That's how you get your crowd involved, is you make you put it together. So maybe Clemson wins the toss and you say, hey, we're going to take the ball first and we're going to score and we're going to get this place juiced up. And wouldn't it be a welcome back if Wesco indeed suits up on Saturday, that you get them another thing like we were told with Mr. Munson, that stuff's coming. And so I think that there's a lot of and that's from App State, to clarify. We don't have anything information privy to Saturday night, but there's a lot of just different factors, David. And it's so exciting in November, I think, at the end of the day, that this isn't a team that we're talking about that's 4-4. It's a team that's in the top 12, and certainly one that fans might expect to be in the postseason in December. So high-flying offense, it's been on display all year, besides maybe one smidge against Georgia. And we'll see if that continues on Saturday. I think that covers our keys. A good 21 minutes of some Louisville discussion. Some good stuff.
Well, yeah, and don't forget, Tuesday is a big day at the polls, because we find out not only about, what's happening with our country, everybody's going to go vote, or maybe you've already voted, or whatever's going to happen. But you and I will definitely be dialed in on the, the first college football playoff rankings. Not so much the elections. Is Clemson going to be, will they win? Are they going to be there? And then before we go, let's talk about how this might begin to be a little bit of a separation Saturday in the ACC, because you have 4 teams who are currently undefeated in conference play. Am I right? Pitt?
Yes.
Pitt,
SMU, Miami, and Clemson.
Right.
Yep.
Guess what? Pitt, we don't know if Eli Holstein's going to play. They're at SMU in Dallas this weekend.
Ooh.
So there you go. There's no ties in college football anymore. So
Thank
one
God.
of those teams is going to wear a loss.
And Miami plays a good Duke team at noon. That's going to be a tailgate watcher, I think, for many Clemson fans, just sort of navigating this ACC slate. Duke's not a very explosive offense, but their defense behind Manny Diaz, that's a force up there in North Carolina.
That quarterback just
transfer from Texas.
They just don't have explosive playmakers. That's kind of at Duke. And he kind of gets put into some bad situations. He's maybe not the most accurate guy in the world. I think that Miami could score, 17-20 and beat them. Truly.
Another thing to monitor, David, is in 2 weeks, Clemson will be traveling to Pittsburgh. And I think you and I both believe that Clemson will be still holding that one loss from Georgia entering that slate. But Pittsburgh could also be undefeated going into that matchup as well. Not only for probably a play-in game for the Sharks to represent who of those two could be represented in Charlotte, because I think both would be 7-0 in ACC play, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Or would Pittsburgh still have one more game left to play? Not entirely sure there, but that could be basically if you're an NBA fan, that's your play-in tournament to get into the next phase of the playoff. So there's a lot of fun stuff. Potentially College Game Day wants to take a trip to Pittsburgh. I don't know if they would.
Well, Pitt does. They have SMU this weekend, and then they host Virginia on Saturday, November the 9th. And then they host Clemson, and they go to Louisville and Boston College to kind of finish out their schedule. I think that this is an interesting weekend across college football and in the ACC. Virginia Tech at Syracuse. We know what Syracuse did, gifting all those points to Pitt last week. I think they've actually got a shot to beat Syracuse. How about UNC at Florida State? Man, is Florida State ever going to right the ship? They have that one, win against what's turned out to be a Cal team that just loses every game by 3 points. Stanford has to go to NC State, Louisville at Clemson, Pitt, SMU, Miami, Duke. It's going to be a fun weekend, not only here but across the country. And hey, don't forget, 2 service academies play this weekend: Air Force and Army. I'm looking forward to that one.
This is an at-large game as well. Ohio State at Penn State is another one that
it's a nooner.
Yeah, that's going to be another tailgate watcher for sure. That's probably if you don't have that on the TV, you're probably committing a crime at a Clemson tailgate.
And I'll tell you what about that game is that Nebraska stayed with them last week, and Ohio State's offensive line did not look really good. And this is the time of year when you go, oh, Penn State, there you are. Look at you, you're ranked. And then they just blow it somehow, right? And, we don't know if Allard's going to play or not. I just think this has a different feel to it. I really do. I know that Ohio State is favored by a couple. I think Penn State's going to beat them. I do.
Ooh, okay.
I do.
So we're ending this podcast with a bang here. We got not
I
only
think
some.
Penn State's going to walk away with that victory.
Ooh, okay.
And the Ryan Day to be fired calls up at Ohio State, that is a fan base that in a lot of ways, they do not like that man. They do not like what he has done.
Really don't.
And, they think that they should go 15-0 every year. And I think the calls will get louder. Not that they're going to fire Ryan Day, because they're not. But those fans are going to be all about it if that happens.
You don't let the guy go unless you got someone better waiting in the wings, and there's not really a coach out there that can stack above.
Pay me $3 million, I'll go coach those Buckeyes. Let's go.
All right, we need to shut David down off that one. But guys, thank you so much for listening to the Orange Crush podcast. You can see on the banner below if you're watching our YouTube. But for our Spotify audience, continue to support our sponsors by maybe go get into Chicken Biscuit tomorrow morning at Chick-fil-A. And as well, shout out Lisa Nason and Nason Accounting. We just are so thankful for what they've done to keep this podcast rocking and rolling, and David and I to give you 26 minutes of nonsense. But guys, thank you so much as always for tuning in. Stay tuned to our TigerNet coverage throughout the weekend. It's going to be a fun one tomorrow night. Be sure to check out all the stuff. You guys know the drill at this point. Thank you so much. Take care and have a good one.